Hey guys, I'm super excited. We've got my friend and a longtime colleague Jed Etters with me today, and Jed is an absolute rock star in all things real estate. He grew up in the business kind of like I did as a young professional out here in Southern Oregon, and then quickly grew though. He outgrew his area and he went out and become one of the top managers in the country for real estate companies. He's now written a book. We're going to talk about his book today too. And Jed, welcome to the program, man.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Jim. As always, we talk about rock stars, and I got to say, you are the rock star. I just get to follow in your footsteps.
Uh,
But I appreciate you having me on your podcast here because I know this has been a very successful thing for you, and always love to get out here and participate. So thanks for
well,
having me.
And Jed is coming to us from beautiful San Diego this afternoon.
Sunny Southern California.
Sunny Southern California.
It doesn't suck.
We're freezing down here. He's having a good time. Perfect climate. So let's walk everybody back kind of over your backstory quickly and just kind of get to know you a little bit so people can kind of understand where you came from. So how did you arrive in the real estate industry? I mean, what was that journey like, and what happened right after that, after you got into business?
Yeah, so I mean, I started really, really young working at a title company. So I was like 15 years old, and I got my start as just the title runner. They don't even have those anymore. I'm just getting really old. And as soon as I was old enough to actually get my real estate license, all of the real estate companies that I worked for were like, "Hey, Jed, are you going to get your real estate license?" So I was like, I jokingly tell people, I said I was already at the bottom. I think I was making like $1,000 a month or something like that. And I was like, I can't go any lower. So why not just get into real estate, you
Yeah,
know?
right.
So I ended up going to work for a private company at that time, private real estate company at about, 18, 19 years old and sold my first house. And then, at 23, I thought I'd be really smart and I'd get my own real estate franchise. I'd open my own real estate company,
Wow.
and it was really good in 2005, 2006, and 2007. It
Awesome.
was it was the reckoning, right?
Yeah.
And then I proceeded to suffer in 2008 and 9 and 10. And then finally, I decided, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to Seattle, Washington, and I'm going to reinvent myself. I'm going to start over. Sold the real estate company that I had and moved to Seattle. It was between Portland or Seattle, and I was like, I got to get out of Oregon because all this was happening in Oregon. So I ended up going to Washington State and selling real estate again in Seattle, and ended up becoming a manager for real estate agents. And the interesting thing was that I worked for a company that didn't tell me that this one office, one of their prime offices, was probably about ready to close. And
They lured you in.
they said, "Hey, do you want to manage this office?" And I was like, "Sure."
Yeah, let's do that.
And and I get in there. There's 22 agents. I remember there's 22 agents that were still there at an office that had over 85 agents at one point.
Wow.
And the market had just ravaged everything, right? So
Yeah.
the day I got there, two of the 22 left. They were literally had boxes and they were walking out the door. So I'm like, okay, I got 20 people. I got to figure this out. And over the next couple of years, we ended up growing that to 55, 60 agents, and that was a process, and that was a tough one to do, but ended up being a great successful office, and that turnaround definitely helped me learn a lot about management in the real estate space. Ended up getting married, having a couple kids, and then I thought, you know what? A great place for kids, Southern California.
Beautiful Southern
And
California.
so since 2018, been out in Southern California, and I got to tell you, it's every bit as good as people say it is. But came over here, and just an opportunity came right available right after I moved here, and ended up managing an office, coastal, for one of the largest real estate companies in the world, and since then, kind of taken over, you know, uh, four different locations, and now have a decent sized staff and what have you, and really been pursuing on top of real estate, pursuing my sales book, so that way all the things that I keep on training people over and over and over, I can actually write down. I can be like, go to this chapter,
Yeah,
take a look
read
at,
this, read this.
read this part about the power of language, and then get back to me. Let's talk about it. So
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 let's
that's
talk.
kind of an overview quickly of where I've kind of been and where I am.
Yeah, let's backing up a step though. I mean, I don't want to underplay the fact that you were a top producing real estate agent yourself, and I think a lot of people listening will be you're in San Diego now, which is a metro market, but when you started, you weren't in a metro market. You were in a small town, and you quickly became a very successful agent. Just for people that need a little inspiration, because we're in a market that's a little tougher than it has been. What did you do to kind of break out initially? Just what are some tips you have for people?
Yeah, I tell people all the time that are thinking about, how can I be successful in real estate? There's tons of statistics out there, and I didn't know this at the time when I first sold my first house. Um, but the number one place you're going to get any of your business is from the people that know you, like you, trust you, and
Yeah,
remember you.
yeah.
And a lot of people will search for internet leads. There wasn't really internet leads when I first started,
Mm.
but they they'll search for internet leads and all these things. And I tell people, everything that you're doing comes down to getting in front of someone, getting face to face with them.
Yeah.
And so, one of the first things somebody said to me, I said, how do you sell a lot of houses? Because, you have that one moment when you first get your real estate license. You're so excited. I'm getting my real estate license. I'm going to become a realtor. And then you sit down at some desk or somewhere, and then you have this aha moment. I need customers. I need people that want to buy a home. Otherwise, I'm not a realtor.
Right, right.
Uh, and so, the first 90 days, I didn't take a day off, and I handed out about 1,000 cards, business cards. I'm
Wow.
in line. I'm in line at the grocery store, and I'm like, "My name's Jed Etters. If you need a good deal on a home, like, here's my card. Here's my card. Here's my card." And I handed out tons of cards. And eventually, I had a team of 5 people. We were selling 30 houses a month. It was a really busy time, and it really seems so distant from now. But I would say, for anybody that wants to get out and do it, they need to get out and do it. Introduce yourself to people, get in front of people.
Mhm.
I will say sometimes, like, listen, if I told you, Jim, I'm going to write you a $50,000 check right now. The only thing you have to do is take this business card and go find someone and say, my name's Jim. Do you want to buy or sell a house? If I gave you that, how long would it take you to come back
Yeah, we've been
for that
there.
check? You'd be like, I don't care. You'd find somebody's grandma. You'd like run in front of a car, stop traffic, and you'd do that. But the reality of it is that you don't know the person that you're going to talk to next. You don't know if that's the person that's going to end up buying $1 million, $2 million house from
Right. That's right.
you. And so it really comes down to there's no secret sauce other than getting in front of people.
I love it. I used to teach a thing about having everybody go back and I said, find your business cards. And then you go back and find that old box with your business cards in it. And you say, how long have you had this set of business cards? Did you get, is this the first set you got and you haven't exhausted them yet? Which is so true, right? Like how many people actually are handing out their business cards anymore? It's so funny. But you're absolutely right. The old school belly to belly, it's still absolutely true. I mean, all this internet stuff brings us to a position where we're sitting across the table from someone.
Well, what it does, I think, and I think people look at it differently than maybe I do. I looked at everything as we're creating doorways. Really, all the advertising we do is just a doorway,
Yeah,
and it creates an opportunity to meet somebody. When you walk through it, you're meeting them face to face,
yeah,
or a phone call,
yeah,
or a video chat. But all it is, if you don't walk through those doorways that you create, it doesn't matter.
yeah, yeah. You gotta create the opportunity for people to walk through, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you went from there, you became the top sales agent. You ended up becoming a top manager now. You've mastered that little market, and then you decided to go to San Diego. But something I want to cover for a second, because I think there's a lot of brokerage owners that are listening too that say, okay, how did he go from 20 agents to 55, 60 agents in a couple of years? I mean, that's a huge amount of recruiting And recruiting is a whole different animal. So speak to us about what was your approach to that? I mean, how did you build that up?
If you're recruiting people, I say that there's only a couple things people want,
Yeah,
right? They want their life to be easier and they want to make more money. Like,
100%. I couldn't have said it better.
so the question is, how can your company or how can your business make someone's life easier
Yep.
and make them more money or cost them less, or I mean, they put more money in their pocket in the end,
Yeah.
and then tell a story about it. Come
Hmm.
up with an actual example and how this will change somebody's life. And one of the things I talk about in my book is, logic will get you an appointment,
Yeah.
right? Hey,
Yeah.
you know what, Jim, you need to meet with me because you don't know what's out there. And you go, that's logical. I don't know what's out there. Maybe there's something that I've been missing. But do you think that that's going to get you to move?
No.
And the thing is, and you know this, Jim, because Jim, being one of the top recruiters ever, one of the things is like people have to have passion or excitement or emotion. That's what gets people to move.
Yeah.
So if you're not excited about it for them, if they don't get excited about it, if they have that ho hum after they left with you, you didn't do your job,
Right.
and you're not going to get them to move. I can tell you, I've moved hundreds of agents, and you know, I can't think of one that was like, oh, it's logical. I don't really want to move, but it's logical.
Well, it makes sense. Yeah. I think that comes down to the first person you have to sell is yourself. You got to be fired up and passionate about what you're selling. And then that conveys to them. They get fired up from your energy around it.
Well, and that goes to another thing that I talk about, which is, if you don't believe in you, other people aren't going to believe in you. So you really do have to have a conversation with
Yeah.
yourself beforehand.
Yeah.
Do I believe what I'm saying? Is this really going to be better for these
Right.
people? If you don't think it is, it's going to come through. Your emotions and your feelings really come through. But if you're sold on it,
Yeah.
it's so contagious, right? It's like
Yeah.
laughter's contagious, emotions are contagious. Like there's just something about that if you're excited about it, if you're pumped out of it and you're excited for them, then I think it comes through. And look, it has to be a sincere thing, right? Because
100%.
if they come over, one person comes over and you lied to them because you fed them a bunch of
Yeah.
baloney,
Yeah.
then they're gonna tell everybody. So you got to create a good experience once they get here.
Yeah, and one of the worst things I hear people say is, "Well, they drank the Kool-Aid." You don't want, you're not selling Kool-Aid here. You're selling real results, right? And that's exactly what you're saying. If you have real results or real tools, I should say, that produce results, exactly, they're going to be thrilled that they came. But I want to jump over to your book right now. So
Yeah,
you've taken months and months and months to write this book, which we're excited to have them come out.
oh, 4 years.
4 years, a lot of months. That's like the baby who's now, how old's that baby? He's 60 months old.
He's like 16 years old. He's driving.
So you've given birth to this book almost. It's almost here, your last trimester. So let's talk about first of all, what's the title of the book?
Title of the book is "Shut Up and Win."
Shut Up and Win. I love it. I saw the cover art here a minute ago. It looks amazing. And let's talk about the contents. This is not just for real estate sales, but really for sales in general, but it definitely applies to real estate.
Yeah, it can definitely. I took a real deep look into what I was trying to create. And, I think that the need that I had when I was getting into real estate, when I was getting into sales, was I needed some sound strategies. I needed to know the things I didn't know,
Yeah.
which I didn't know what that was.
Right.
And there's some great books, like one of the books that I love is How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think that's a
Great book.
foundational book.
Absolutely.
I think everyone should read that. If you haven't read it, you should read it.
Yeah.
Dale Carnegie wrote it in 1930s, and
Incredible.
still as relevant today as it was back then.
100%.
Um,
100 years ago, it's still relevant.
Still relevant. And I thought though, if I would have known the things that I put in my book, it would have made me more successful, and I would have been able to have reached a lot of places with a lot less pain.
Yeah.
So I think for the salesperson that's going out there, that really wants to learn some good strategies,
Yeah.
I think it'll be a really easy digestible book. I wrote it in such a way too. I have like this short attention span, right? So I can't have long-winded things. I wrote it a whole bunch of little stories that kind of come together under one concept that's easy to grasp. And from all of my test readers, they say that it's very engaging. So
Nice.
hopefully everybody will find it as engaging. The other person that I think is kind of the target for that is if you're a manager and you're thinking like, how do I get my people to not just I used to joke and say I pay people to not sell real estate. I want to pay people to sell real estate as an owner or a manager. Um, this is a great book that will help them on their sales journey to become great salespeople. And by the way, I say successful strategies for business and life. All of these things are pretty transferable. So no matter what business you're in and no matter what life you're in or on, I don't know, you could be on like your last leg.
Journey. Let's break down. I just so we can give a little taste of it to the people that are listening. Let's talk about a couple of chapters because we talked a little bit about
Sure.
before we started recording. Yeah, fill me in. I mean, give me a couple of your favorite chapters. I know they're all good, but give me a couple.
Yeah, I was like, what child's your favorite?
Yeah,
Well, all of
exactly.
them. All. I'll hit a couple of topics that I think
Yeah,
are really relevant. So one thing that I talk about is you're creating your inner super fan.
gotcha.
And I talk about this because a lot of times we get in these situations where we're pretty harsh with ourselves. Can we agree on that, right?
Yeah,
Like, why did
100%.
you do that? Why did you say that? If
Yeah,
you would have said this differently, then you could have won. If I would have done that, and you think about all these things you could have, should have, would have,
yep.
after the fact. So I tell people, rather than having things that you say that are harsh to yourself, maybe instead of being faithless, be faithful,
Mm.
full of faith that you can accomplish something. But sometimes we need that little extra kick. Now, I'm talking about a super fan, right? Like everybody sees Taylor Swift these days, right?
Oh,
They're
yeah,
like
yeah.
crying, and they're like, you ask one of these little super fans, like, what could Taylor Swift do it? And they're like, yes, she can.
Of
She
course.
can do anything. She's Taylor Swift, you know. And the thing is like, do you have a super fan? I tell people, I say, and you'll actually find this amusing, Jim, but who do you hear in your head that could be your super fan that you walk into the room and they're so excited to see you they start crying because Jim Remley is here? Oh my gosh. And you say, you know what?
Mm.
I don't know if I can really do this. This looks really, really difficult. I've
Yeah,
had a tough week and I don't know if I can do this. And then I say, go to your super fan and ask them. And you, Jim, you turn to your super fan in your head and you're like, do you think I could do this? And they're like, Jim, yeah, of course, you're Jim Remley. Who couldn't do that? Like you can do anything you put your mind to, Jim.
I love it.
And so I talk about the super fan because I think a lot of us could use a little extra super fan in our lives. And
100%.
And one thing we talked about too, Jim, was not like, would the super fan tell you to do something stupid? If
Right.
they're a super fan and you're thinking, I'm going to go cliff jumping,
Yeah.
you know, Jim, don't do that. You might hurt yourself. I'm your super fan. Don't do it. They're not telling you to do anything. They're telling you to do wise things, and then they're supporting you and giving you that extra little umph.
I love it. I love it. Somebody told me one time that, all the negative self-talk that we give to ourselves is like a prayer to yourself for failure. So if you reverse that, like what you're saying is we need somebody on the other side with a positive message to us because we naturally have all this negative self-talk. So I like it's like a reverse of that. It's like a positive self-talk. So I think that's good.
Well, it's one step away from you.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's kind of
For
like you have
me.
this imaginary like friend essentially, like you got this
Yeah.
imaginary super fan that is like telling you like what would the super fan really say.
Yeah.
So it's one step away.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Give me another example. Little nugget.
Another little nugget. I talk about the power of language, and I've had a lot of the test readers really love that.
Yeah.
And one of the things is I say take I and me out of the equation.
Hmm.
If I'm having conversations, a powerful sales conversation, And I'm constantly saying, well, I think this is a really good idea, Jim.
Yeah.
And for me, this would be a really good deal. And I really, really think you need to just sign on the dotted line. Me,
Yeah.
and so I talk about taking I and me out.
Mm.
And you don't really think about our language and how much that affects and sculpts the sales that are happening.
Yeah.
But if I have a conversation and I say, instead of, I think this is a good thing for you, Jim, this could be a good thing for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is a lot more powerful because now it's not centered around me. This is centered around you.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I talk about like coming to people with your hand out and I want something,
Mm-hmm.
or also going to give something, your hand down.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that most people you can smell them a mile away when they come and they just want.
Yep.
I think that's where they get the want.
They're leading with their need, not your need, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it's amazing when people feel like you have their best interest in mind. It's amazing how that changes the conversation.
Right. Yeah.
Another thing that I talk about in there is taking but out of the equation, right? And
Hmm.
what do I mean by that? Jim, you are a really, really good recruiter. I mean, so good. But
Let me give you the bad news.
well, but in the English language cancels out everything out that I say before that.
It's interesting. You're right. Yep.
Change but to and.
Yes. Yes.
Jim, you're a really successful salesperson. And now I'm continuing on with what I said rather than canceling it out.
And I think you can even get better by.
Yeah. And I think, here's the opportunity.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of opportunities. So
I think that's interesting when you're in a recruiting situation for sure, because you could say, I think you're a great agent, but if you just had our stuff, you could be even a better agent. You could just hear yourself saying it. It's just a natural tendency. So changing that language up, what a difference that can make. That's interesting.
it's a subtle difference
Yeah.
that makes a big difference. The other thing is I say, don't ask people why.
Mm.
Why are you here? Why are you there? Why are you making this decision? If I say, Jim, why are you doing podcasts?
Yeah.
If I say that, then what are you going to say?
Well, because I think I can reach an audience, have an impact, blah, 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 blah.
Okay, and it's essentially just this superficial answer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If I ask the how question instead of a why question, and let me give you the example. Jim, how did you decide to start doing podcasts?
Much, much more powerful, much deeper. Yeah.
And what I'm doing is I'm getting a deep look into how you arrived at the decision. And
Yes.
when I understand you and I understand how you decided something, then I can craft my message to be a lot more valuable to you that goes around your values.
Yeah. I
But I
love it.
can't do that if I don't understand how you arrived at a
At the
decision.
decision. Yeah.
And I'm never going to
Really
get that
powerful.
by asking why.
Interesting. I think that's such a natural tendency for people to ask why too, but the how is actually more powerful. Interesting. That's good. Now, when and how would people get a copy of your book? I mean, we're going to be able to find it.
Well, I'm doing this. I'm going the self-publishing route,
Okay.
and so it's going to be on Amazon.
Nice.
I'm going to be doing an audiobook. I'm going to be doing the hardcover, the soft cover, every single digital format. I'm going to put it in every format so that way it's easy for people to shut up and win.
Shut up and win. I love it. Are you going to do the voiceover version like Audible too?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
I'm going to do that. And I'll probably do, so I already have shutupandwin.com. So
Yeah.
if people want to go there, they can go to shutupandwin.com. I'll also be doing a podcast. I'll probably invite you on there, Jim, to
Lovely.
come and
Yeah.
talk.
Do
But,
it.
just really helping people get the strategies to go out there and win.
I love it. Well, we're going to watch for that, and we're going to update our audience when it comes out. We'll make sure we get a big plug for you on the website and on the socials. So, Jed, in the meantime, how can people get a hold of you or want to connect with you and say, hey, put me on a pre-order list, or they just want to touch base with you?
Yeah, go to shutupandwin.com. I've
Yeah.
got it all set up, and people go on there that just click on the button to get on the mailing list. Happy to get everybody on there. and reach out. We'll definitely. I'm always happy to reach out to and talk with people that are curious, that are really just want to win. So I'm always welcoming people.
And for those sales managers and brokers out there, giving away a book as a sales contest is a great idea. So maybe you get 10 of those books and
Just
an
get my book,
opportunity. Just
and
buy the
actually
book.
look. If they sell one more house, that was a good investment.
That's how we sell it, right? All right, Jed. Thank you so much for being on the program, and we will see you next time, my friend.
Jim, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.